Hello and welcome. We're now ready to begin today's webinar, Networking, the Secret to Success. My name is Virginia Boccaccio. I am a program coordinator with Rutgers Executive and Professional Education, and I will be your host and moderator. Rutgers EPE is the proud sponsor for today's webinar, which highlights timely topic areas and issues in human resources, leadership, and management. We have formally allotted 30 minutes for today's webinar. You can send your questions throughout the presentation using the questions box. The orange arrow depicted here opens and closes your controls. With your controls open, you will see the questions box on the lower half and the send button on the lower right. We will have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and a link to the archived version will be sent to you via email. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our instructor. Kathleen Cashman is president of Cashman Consulting, LLC, an international management consulting and training firm. In addition to teaching for Rutgers Executive and Professional Education, Kathleen is also an adjunct professor at Rutgers, teaching within the Masters of Business and Science in the areas of communication and leadership. Kathleen, please take it away.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. This is going to be quite an experience for us in the next 28 minutes. We're going to be talking and focusing on networking, making it work by understanding how it works. And as you have already been shared, there is going to be a question and answers time towards the end of our program. But if you've got a question, please make sure that you type it in there, and the team here will make sure they get it to me. I know one of the first things that we need to do in order for any session to be successful is to understand what our goals are. So as that is true for this session, we're going to open our session with a poll. And I'm going to ask you all to participate in that poll with what is your goal for today. And your options are one of three, and they are the following. What do you want to know more about? Is it, number one, the meaning of interviewing? Number two, leveraging your network to achieve your goals? Or number three, discovering your networking strategies that work? Again, the poll is open, and if you will just type in number one, number two, or number three, I'll know how to divide up our time in that we've got a limited amount of it. So I'll give you just a moment to do that.
So it looks like everyone is completing that. Kathleen, can we go ahead and close the poll out? Is that okay?
That is great.
Okay. All righty. So it looks like 29% of the group is looking to know more about leveraging your network to achieve your goals, and 71% is looking to know more about discovering network strategies that work.
Okay, well, that's awesome. Okay, well, let's get on our way. And not that the meaning of networking is not important. It is, and we're going to cover them all, but it gives me an opportunity to maybe tell a few more stories or bring in a few more strategies, since that is the avenue that most people want to know more about. So let's get on our way. We know, like when we were a child, making friends was easy. Why is it that today it's not so easy when we go into rooms to exchange some information, to get to meet others? While we can look at it from afar, when you're in it, sometimes our smiles are not as big as they are here. We're going to turn that around, and we're going to go back to child's play and understand, just like the smell of a new crayon, how is it that we can get that energy to make these pictures come alive for you. So what is it? I'm going to ask you to start thinking to yourself about your own habits. So what is the one thing that you do in the following areas? I want you to get your strategy. What do you do? How do you go about assessing your net? How do you go about working your net? And what is it that you do or have done lately to thank your net for working for you? And a follow-up question to that would be, how do you know your net is working for you? And we're going to handle all three of these, but I know right now you've got some strategies that you're using that you may not recognize that they are effective in building your net, working your net, and certainly having your net continue to work for you. That's why we want to thank our net. And sometimes if we do the same thing over and over again, it becomes less than effective. So that is the reason why we want additional strategies. Not that anything that you're doing isn't good, but when you change it up a bit, it starts to add some energy, and that energy catches like wildfire as you talk about networking. Remember, it's a human dynamic. And with the humans, it's an exchange of energy, the energy that we have when we are connecting, that is going to cause a memory. And in order for networking to work, we want to be memorable. So let's talk about what it is that we need to do to ensure that the rooms that we go into come alive, that we're just not standing there receiving information. That's oftentimes why we go to events. The keynote speaker has got some information that we want to know more about, and it is something we always leave with. But we may miss the opportunity with all of the people that are there to get more value out of that event. So we want to be the ones that leave with more. And so let's see what we do to turn we know all of these people into, this is how I utilize these people that I know. And that is the key to networking. You could have a lot of people that you know, like friends on Facebook, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about who are the people that we can utilize in our network to get the things done that we need to get done. And it doesn't mean manipulate them. We want them to help us because they want to help us. We know that your success, right, in anything starts with your goals. And so as you look to who's in your net, you want to answer that question in relationship to the goals that you have set. And we know to reach our goals, this is just a kind of a roadmap, we want to visualize our goals. We want to tell others. That's where your network comes into play. So we want to look at our net as to who do I need to tell that this is what I'm doing, and who is it that I need to ask for what kind of support. And then, as you know, it is up to us to do massive amounts of action and to stay positive as we're doing it, as we're reaching our goal. But as it comes full circle with networking, we need to come back to the who did we tell, and how do we keep them informed on our progress? That's part of your working your net. And who is it that I need for support, and how do I go about asking for that support and keeping up with that support? So that part of the loop is very important to us as we're reaching our goals and as we tie networking to our goals. Think about what you do as you are pursuing the things that you're pursuing, and that's both to your job and to the other areas of your life. Now, I know many of you might have smiled there to say, do I have another life outside of my job? But yes, you should, and you will if you are able to utilize your net more effectively. That's how busy people get things done. It's more than you who are doing things to make sure that you're moving yourself forward. So as we look at network, right, we've got the two words there. Let's first look at the net. And the net here, we're saying who's in it. Again, who's in it and who's missing, who I'd like to have in it, so that I can make a plan for an acquisition, all as it relates to our goals. So you can imagine you've got 150 people, that's minimum, and not all 150 people do I need some support, or do I need to tell about goal number 1, and it may be different people goal number 2 and different people goal number 3. So you're going to have a different section of your net for each of your goals. There might be some overlay. As you look at that, you're then going to say, okay, this is who I have, who's missing? Well, I need to know maybe someone in HR, or someone in finance, or someone in, and fill in the blank. I need to know someone who's got this skill or that competency. I need to know someone who knows someone in that area. Well, once I have that criteria, I can then go throughout my world and say, who knows who can help me get that person into my net, right? That's the first part of networking. And we know that you want to be looking at who will be there that you know if you're going to a networking event, okay? So that's the net that I'm playing with. Now let's talk about the work that goes into the net. You know you need to always have a current, what we've labeled the elevator pitch, a short branding statement that talks about who you are. You know you need to know your goals and a way for you to articulate those goals. So they need to be a complete sentence. I'm looking to build my network, right? Well, that's very broad. What specific area of your network are you looking to build? You want to have that specific as your goals. You need to have certainly know what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So done your research so that you can articulate what is it that you need. And then I always like to have 4 questions that I bring to each event that I'm going to. An event meaning conversation. So it doesn't need to be an orchestrated meeting, but whatever it is that I'm doing, I want to make sure that I've got 4 questions that I could use that will start the conversation towards what it is that I'm trying to do. A broad question, you know, how I think about this is, what do I want to know more about today, right, in relation to my goals? So if I'm going to a meeting that has leadership, I might suggest that I bring, you know, what are the current leadership challenges that you're facing? I might suggest that I ask something like, what was your key to getting to this position of leadership in your career? I might ask, what is one leadership development book that you've read in the past 6 months? And maybe, to hone that even deeper, I might ask, what's the one key leadership learning that you've had in the past month that you could share with me? That might be an example of 4 questions that I would use that would spark a conversation around leadership and would get me to have a conversation with the individual about my goals without saying, here's my goal, and I want you to help me. So you want to use your net, and you want to use the power of questions to be able to get the conversation moving in the direction that you want to go. You certainly want to go to an event, right? The work is to have a plan to work the room. And that's why the pre-work, who will be there that you know, is key. If I know that there are going to be certain people there, I might want to work the room prior to getting in by sending them an email saying, hey, I see that you're going to, or are you going to this event? I'm planning on going. It's going to be nice to see you there. Bring the latest things that are going on with you. Can't wait to catch up. Now, right there, I just hooked what could potentially be a danger zone. When you go to a networking event and you know there are going to be people there that you know, you don't want to spend your time with the people that you already know, right? They already accept your phone calls for a conversation. Going to a networking event, you want to understand that the people you don't know are the ones that you want to get to know so that they will accept your call and you can call them at any time, not waiting for an event. So think of a networking event as the opportunity for you to have a great impression to get what we call the second date. Okay, that the first date, we're all on our best behavior, we're trying to get to know each other, and it's at the end of that first date or that first conversation that the person acknowledges, yeah, you know what, I'm up for a second date. And that second date is a call, it's a coffee, it's an email. What is it that we're working towards? That's the mindset that you need to come to the net and the work as you are looking to build that network. So let's talk a little bit about some of those strategies and those tips here. What are some things that we want to do? Again, I want you to keep in mind those questions we asked you before as to what are you already doing so that we can build or add on to your arsenal. And there might be something that I say that you could incorporate into something you're already doing, and it will enhance that strategy. So make sure you've got a pen and paper so that you can take your notes as to what are some things that make sense for you. Oftentimes I get asked the question, you know, that's great, but I could never do that. How does it work for me? Well, I could give you personalized strategies, but I don't know you in this setting. So the best that we can do is for you to envision what these things might look like according to what you're comfortable with. I'll try and add some visualness as we go around. So the first thing is establishing the networking mindset. And oftentimes people say, I hate networking, or I like networking, it just doesn't work for me. So what does the networking mindset look like? That is a position, a state that you put your mind in to say, yes, it will work. Yes, I'm good at it. I could always be better. But the real key is that I don't have to wait for an event to network. The networking mindset is it happens everywhere. Every time, every conversation that I'm in is an opportunity for you to network. So let's say you're networking with a colleague and you're talking about leadership. Opportunity should be glaring to you for you to be able to share what's your goal. I'm just picking leadership as an example. What's your goal when it comes to leadership? Do you want to know more leaders? Do you want to interview more leaders? Do you want to understand more of the leaders' challenges? Well, here's someone who already knows you, they like you, they trust you, and you might ask them this question at the end of your conversation. Hey, Mo, Larry, Curly, I am in the position where I am going to be interviewing some leaders, and I want to understand from them what are some of their challenges. Kind of a quick 5-10 minute conversation about the challenges that they face. Would you happen to know anybody who I could learn from? And would you be willing to introduce me to them? See, what I've just done is used my network to get an introduction, warm lead, to someone that I could possibly add to my network. So the networking mindset is that I'm always looking through the lens of my goals at the everyday occurrences that I'm in, whether I'm on the soccer field, the basketball court, the gym, I am in the grocery store, I'm out to dinner, and I'm talking with my server, wherever it is that I use that opportunity to build my network. So what would that look like for you as you look at your everyday? And some of you might be saying, I can't afford to be going to all these networking events. I don't have the time. Well, it doesn't matter. You don't need to go. In fact, here's a networking mindset, no extra charge. If you do know someone in your organization that is going to an event that you can't go to, the pre-work you might do is, hey, I can't wait to find out how this event worked for you, what you learned, and here's something that if I were going, I'd want to know more about. If you could bring back 1 or 2 thoughts on that, I'd really appreciate it. And would it be all right if I called you at the end of the day tomorrow, let's say the event is tonight, to find out what you learned? Now, the work that you do is send an email reminding them that they agreed that you could call them and that this was the topic that you were looking for. So that'd be ready for them when they get in the next day. Remember, the networking mindset is something you control. You want to certainly be knowledgeable about the event if you're going, so you want to find out as much about the event as you can. Google search the keynote speaker or the topic so that you've got some up-to-date items. Search your brain as to what is it that you know for sure and what is it that you don't know, so that you can work the event to find out more about what it is that you don't know. Be knowledgeable about the event. If there is a list of attendees that you can get your hands on, then make sure that you get your hands on that so that you can search to see who are the people that you know and who are the people that you want to know who are going to be attending. Oftentimes, events today have panel discussions. They usually post the panel people. Make sure that you Google those people, find out as much as you can, and go through your LinkedIn to see who do you know that knows them. That's pre-work to how you're going to follow up. Again, who will be there that you need to know from the attendee list and from the list of people that you know are going. You might ask them, do they know others who are going? We want you to think about how you're going to be memorable. Okay, how are you going to make that energy connection, that passionate connection with the people who are going to be there? And sometimes it starts with your image. I like to use, and in my case, I look at scarves and pins as a way for me to become memorable. I might wear a specific color and have a specific piece of jewelry, a pin, that I use as a talking point. Oftentimes it gets people to say, oh, I like your scarf, or oh, that's a unique pin. It gets me, gets them comfortable with approaching me, which is a nice thing to do, although I'm not afraid to approach others. You may not be me. So finding something that will be the attraction factor. You might use the outfit completely, a tie. You might carry your iPad with, or your phone that has a unique cover, something that is going to cause somebody to say, hey, that's neat. I want to get to at least say that is interesting. And that is an opportunity for you to have a conversation. Be memorable also means that you are going to do something to cause that person to remember you in the course of the conversation. Another word for being memorable is to be remarkable, that somebody is able to make remarks about you as a result of having a conversation. And what would those remarks be? Think about the 3 things that you would like somebody to say about you. That you were interesting, that you were passionate, that you had enthusiasm, and then think about what is it that you're going to do to demonstrate that so that you can become remarkable, therefore you are memorable. You certainly want to prepare your introduction, making sure that you've got that pitch down pat, that you're not stumbling over your words. You know, my name is, make sure that that flows. But beyond your name, what is it that you want them to know about you? Your title, your company, that's all great and fine, but that could be on your business card that you want to exchange. So what might it be over and above that that you want them to know about you? Put that into your introduction. You know that you want to have a demeanor of not only bringing what's interesting to you, but that you are interested in the individual, which means that you've come more to receive information than to give. That's why planning your introduction is important, so that it opens it up to get them to talk. You might say something about, this is who I am, this topic that we're going to be discussing during this event is very interesting to me because, and state an objective that you have, and then turn the conversation to them to say, what is it that you're here to learn? What is your interest in the topic that we have today? And press your lips together so that you can hear all about them. You want to practice listening, and we know that this is not an easy thing to do. To listen means more than to hear. To hear means I can hear the chatter in the background, the clink of glasses, all of those things. We want to go further into listening. Oftentimes we exhibit the signs of paying attention, which is eye contact and nodding our head and putting the I see, that's interesting. That's still not listening. Those are things we do to get us to a point of listening. Listening, there's an active part of listening where we're not only focusing, and having a goal helps us do that, but we are engaged. The activity is that we are exhibiting the eyesight, the ahums, but we're also clarifying and verifying through questions, not thinking of our response. So what are some of the questions that will come to mind, and how are you going to put them into the conversation? That's all about active listening, and we need to be practicing that. Don't forget your business card and a fine ballpoint pen. And the reason I say a fine pen is that on most business cards, whether they're glossy or not, a fine pointed pen will write. So what you want to do is make sure you've got business cards easily accessible that you can hand to someone else. It's the exchange factor. You want to get their business card. and you want to make their business card come alive. So the reason you have a pen is to make notes on the back of their cards as to what was interesting about the conversation. What was it we committed to? Do you have any extra items? And you want to make sure that before you end your conversation, you've agreed, two of you have agreed on a way to follow up. This is your second date. So you want to share with the person, I'm just going to write that on the back of your card, that we agreed to follow up within 12 hours through email and or through a phone call. And is this the best number to call you on? The number that's on your card. And I might circle it, right? What you're doing is giving a visual clue to the other person of their commitment that they've made to you. And you've solidified the commitment that you've made to them on what it is that you've planned to do. Nothing happens unless there's action associated. So this is the action, and this becomes important. Now remember, with that business card, your goal is to follow up, and I would follow up in more than one way, in more than the way that you've agreed to here. I always make sure that there is a personal follow-up, and that personal follow-up is a handwritten note. You might come to the event with some note cards, some envelopes pre-stamped that you could address at the end when you're all done, nobody's there, maybe in your car or when you get home, so that it's an immediate, it was great meeting you tonight at the such and such event. We had a conversation. I look forward to following up by email as we agreed, but I just wanted to say it was a pleasure meeting you. Again, becoming memorable. Then there's follow-through, making sure that you don't have too much to follow through on. The objective is not to get 50 business cards at the end of the event, unless you're just building a list. Your goal should be to walk away with actionable business cards that you could manage the relationship with. You want to, certainly, as you're networking, use social media to build your brand of what you know. And I say use the social media. Not everybody in their industries can use social media, but we want to make sure that you can, and you can always comment on people's blogs. The one thing you can control is your smile, so always bring it with you and always remember to talk through it. We want you to be you. We don't want you to be somebody else. And we want you to understand that the networking, like we started with, is about making connections. It's not about conducting business. You want to get to that next state. Oftentimes people ask me these questions, what if I'm an introvert? Well, you can still network. Remember, listening is an introverted competency. It's an introverted skill. So work through that. What if I go with others that I know? We've touched on that, meaning make sure that you don't stay with them. What if I have no idea what this event is about? Quickly do your homework when you get there. Get the agenda so that you can breeze through it. What if I have no idea how to start the conversation? Well, make sure that you always have some questions that you can use. Know your goals and work from there. What if I want to leave the conversation? How do I get away? Well, there are many strategies there that you can employ, one of which is to thank them for the conversation. Grab their card and tell them that it was great to speak with you here. I would love to continue this. However, I need to be able to move and meet other people as well. Can I follow up with you after the event? And when they say yes, employ the strategies that we've talked about already. So think about your what ifs. What happens when I look at the networking? We've talked a little bit about some of these. How do I approach an existing group that's already talking? They're usually in a circle. I like to look at it as to how will I come in and what is it that I want from the circle. If I'm looking just to blend in, I'll usually try and find a space that has somebody who's about my height so that I can blend in. The group will open up as you walk towards it. If I'm looking to make a statement, I might want to find someone who is not my height so that I stand out. There are different ways to approach. Why should I go to an event? Well, that has everything to do with your goals. How do I leave a discussion? We've talked a little bit about some of those strategies. How do I follow up? Well, certainly you want to clarify that before you leave, and there are many techniques. Remember, everybody gets a bazillion emails, so email might not be the best follow-up. How do I make sure they take my call? with that is the way that we agree. Remember, the more memorable you are, the more that they will take your call. What do I talk about at the event? Well, use the topic there and or something that has happened during the day. How much time does it take to network? It only takes minutes. I'm telling you, it takes minutes. Is your networking and how will you know? Here are just some things to think about. Are you getting more done? Are you having more meetings? Are you having more meetings with people that are new each week, right? And make sure that you're looking to see, about 5, one a day would be great. And those meetings don't need to take a lot of time. They could be Skyped or FaceTimed and or Google Hangout or an email and or a conversation over the phone. Remember, networking is the first step in developing a relationship, and you want to have a plan to work that. Nothing happens unless there's action, and action is part of the plan. People do business with people they know, they like, and they trust. So we want to turn this room full of people into a room full of people who want to do business with you. And it all starts with you and your approach. It takes time. It's a habit. You need to be prepared. You need to remember that there are benefits on all sides, and you need to know that it requires work in order for it to work for you, and it will work for you. It requires you looking at all of the things that are at your fingertips, like our diagram here, and you asking yourself, what are the things that I'm willing to do in order to make sure that I build my net, that it works for me, and that it is working. It all starts with a conversation. I like to say, with me, it's a conversation with Kathleen. And when we have those conversations, we know that they will work. We've come to a point, though, that it's time for us to have some questions. So, Ginny, I'm going to turn it back to you to see what questions might still be out there as we're coming up upon the maybe 4-minute mark.
Okay, great. Kathleen, thank you so much for this great presentation and for your time today. As Kathleen said, we are now at the question and answer portion of the webinar, so please feel free to type your questions in. And we are getting some questions. So let me go ahead and read the first one that we have. Kathleen, you spoke about the elevator pitch. How much time would you say we have when networking to give this elevator pitch to people?
Well, that's a great question. And there's 2 very short time frames. I'll call it the 3 seconds and the 10 seconds, okay? Within the first 3 seconds of you opening your mouth, people are judging whether they want you in to continue the conversation or not. And then the 10-second mark is they will decide whether they're going to stay or leave. So the elevator pitch needs to be very crisp and clear, not rushed. So you want to put the most important information in that first 3 seconds. And you want to look at it in how am I delivering that most important information. Let's say you determine that it's your name. If I say, my name is Kathleen Cashman, well, that's not very exciting. I want to make sure that I use what we call 97%, or excuse me, 93% of the communication effectiveness equation, which is your body language and your vocal quality. That's what's going to capture them in the first 3 seconds.
Okay, great. Thank you. Our next question is, what's a good time to follow up with an email after your initial email? How many times should you follow up before giving up and assuming that they're not interested?
Okay, well, let's go on the assumption first. If you've heard the adage, when I assume, it makes a this out of you and me. Don't make any assumptions that the reason the person is not responding is because they didn't like you or they don't want to follow up. You don't know what's going on during their day. You don't know what's taking them away from the focus that they had the night before when they said, yes, follow up with me. So when you initially follow up, you're eager, it's right away, that demonstrates a lot of things. Remember, everybody's following up that they met that day. Give them at least, and you might put this in your initial follow-up, I will anticipate that there's many activities and dynamics that go on throughout your day. And if for some reason we don't get to connect within the next week, I will take the initiative and follow up with you next week, by Thursday, right? So you set yourself a deadline and put it on your calendar. That gives the other person a little breathing room. And I would do the same in the next follow-up to say, but I would also put some action item into the second follow-up to share with the person that here's another way with which we can connect, and it is through, you tell them that. I would also call. I would not leave everything to the email. Remember, email gets lost. So the rule of thumb, try 3 phone calls before you're willing to say, I'm going to put them on my come-up file, and my come-up file might be next month. I might agree to 2 follow-ups with this person, and then the next month 2 follow-ups. But I will continue to do the follow-up because you never know. When that person is ready to talk to me, I want to be there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Our next question is, how do you manage your network with whom you use as a reference when seeking a job? A lot of companies may be calling them, and they may develop fatigue from answering the same questions to all companies.
Well, the first question is, why are you using the same people over and over again? That would tell me your network is limited. So how do you go about expanding that network of people who could become your references? That's number one, a way to look at your net. Number 2 is anytime you've asked somebody to be a reference for you, I would go one step further, and I would give them the things around which you want them to hit. You want them to hit, how well do you know me? Well, give me the instances of what you want me to talk about. It might be, let's go on an academic perspective. Do you know me from school? And in which case, how was my participation in class if you're asking a professor? Give the person that you are asking to be a reference the reference points. They won't get fatigued then if you haven't asked me to do the work.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, if you met someone a while ago and failed to follow up, however, still connected on LinkedIn, how do you reach out after much time has passed, maybe a year?
That's a great question because that is such a reality today. The world is happening in split seconds, and all of a sudden it's the end of the year, right? The many split seconds that have happened. What you want to do is put that up front to say, we met a year ago, it seems, I can't believe, at the such and such event. I just ran into 4 or 5 people from that event, and it made me think of you. So I'm reaching out. Would love to catch up and find out what's going on. Can we set a time to talk? Just brings it full reality. The world has moved on. You might also do something like, I ran into this YouTube video or this TED Talk or this article, thought of you, passing along the link. How are things? And leave it open. If they're engaged, if you're passing along something, chances are you're going to get back a thank you.
Okay, great. Our next question is, could you introduce some specific methods for deepening the connection after you have built a network?
Deepening the connection, absolutely. Well, one of the things that you might want to be known for, and certainly networking is part of this, is to be a connector. So I'm always looking within my net to connect people. Who is it that this person that I'm talking to needs to know that I know? And I offer to do that connection first for someone so that they get the opportunity to see that I'm not a taker. I'm not here just to take your network. I'm here to give and expand your network. So again, I'm interested in finding out what their goals are and how can I support them. In fact, usually that's a question that I end every conversation with is, in the limited time that I've gotten to know you, I've heard this about you. How can I best support you in that goal? What's something I can do for you right now? So look to give more than you receive. It will come back to you. Number 2, to follow up, you want to make sure that you've left any event or any conversation with enough information to follow up, and that you don't put that person or those cards in the corner of your desk. Make sure that you've incorporated them throughout your calendar with reminders so that you don't forget them.
Great, thank you. Okay, our next question is how to make a memorable small talk before introducing ourselves.
A memorable small talk. Well, small talk or surface level conversation, cocktail level conversation, is usually about current day events. It's usually about the topic of what brought you all together. And I prefer to limit the small talk and get right to the large talk. And large talk is really about what's important to the other person. So I am more of the let me ask you about why you're here early on and find out what is it that is important to you so that we can establish that relationship. I may only get those minutes to have a conversation with this person, and I don't want the conversation to be small.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, our last question is, how else can you walk away from the conversation without saying, I'd like to work the rest of the room. Can I follow up with you via email? Is it polite to interrupt if the person doesn't stop talking?
It is, and one of the things that I have found, and you will find these people who just, they don't know anybody else. You're it. You came up to them, or they had the courage to come up to you, and they're afraid for you to leave, right, because then they'll be alone. There are several ways, one of which is if you know somebody else in the room, offer to introduce that person to them. Right, to say, hey, do you know Kathleen over there? Why don't you come with me? I want to say hello to her. I'll introduce you to her. And as you know, there are lots of people in this room. What I'd love to do, let you meet Kathleen and find out a little bit about her, but I'd like to circle back with you maybe before we end tonight. If I miss you, you have to leave before the meeting is over. Let's agree that we'll follow up afterwards. And remember, follow up. Your word, your reputation is going to hang on it. You don't know who this person knows or what they'll say. And you want to be remarkable, so control those remarks.
Great, thank you. So that was our last question, and that concludes the question and answer portion of the webinar. We would like to thank all of you participants for joining us today, and as a thank you, we'd like to extend a 20% discount off of any EPE programs offered this spring in human resources, leadership, management, and project management. To register, please go to our website, epe.rutgers.edu, and use the discount code webinar021116. For more research on today's topic, Kathleen will be instructing Mastering the Messaging Process as a Leader. This program is a part of our Master's Certificate, Leadership for the 21st Century, and this will be held on March 9th and June 7th. So this concludes today's webinar. Thank you again, Kathleen, and thank you to all of you. As I mentioned earlier, a link to the archive recording of the presentation will be sent to you via email within the next few days. We do hope to see you in our future workshops. And again, for more information, please visit our website, epe.rutgers.edu. Thank you.